The cup hit the floor before the sound of the music stopped. I heard it before anyone else in that hall. A small clink of metal on stone, but to me it was louder than a scream. I did not turn my head. I never turned my head fast. That was the first rule I taught myself after the war took everything else from me. Turn slow. Watch fast. My name is Callum Bray, and I was standing behind the throne of Queen Yisserai of the Thren Collective, doing the only job anyone believed I was good for. Standing still. Saying nothing. Looking harmless. The Thren are tall, with 4 arms and skin like dark polished stone, and they move together like one creature made of many bodies. They talk with their scent as much as their voice, so a room full of them is a room full of conversations I cannot hear. To them, a human guard is a decoration, a gift from Earth, to make the Queen look kind to the small, soft species that just joined the wider galaxy. I was hired because I looked like nothing. That suited me fine. I wanted to be nothing. Nothing does not get asked questions. The banquet hall glowed gold that night, full of Thren nobles in ceremonial silks, celebrating a new peace treaty between our 2 worlds. I stood 2 steps behind the Queen's chair, hands folded, eyes half closed, looking like a man half asleep. But under my eyes, I watched every door. That is when the 3 visitors walked in. They wore the robes of Earth diplomats, dark blue with silver trim, the kind sewn for officials who never leave a desk. But I did not need to see their faces to know they were not diplomats. I knew their walk. I knew the way they scanned a room in 3 quick sweeps before choosing where to stand. I had walked beside men who moved like that. I had trusted men who moved like that. Then one of them looked at me, and his whole body went still. The cup fell from his hand. I felt my heart do something it had not done in 3 years. It remembered. His name was Owen Griggs. Years ago, on a mission that does not exist in any official record, Owen had been my communications officer. My squad had been sent to a border colony to protect a science outpost from what we were told were hostile raiders. We were not told the raiders were a decoy. We were not told the real target was our own outpost, burned down by people from our own side to hide a treaty violation from Earth's government. My whole squad died that night. I lived because I had been sent to check the outer fence, half a kilometer away, when the strike came. I came back to find nothing but smoke and silence, and my own name later listed as missing, then quietly forgotten. For 3 years, I told myself that was a story that only existed in my head, a nightmare, with too many real details. I built a new life, took jobs no one asked questions about, learned to be still, learned to disappear into corners of rooms. I never thought I would see that face again. I never thought that face would go pale with fear the moment it saw mine. Owen recovered fast. He bent down, picked up the cup, and gave the room an apologetic smile, but his eyes did not leave me, not really, not even when he pretended to look away. I understood something in that moment. He was not afraid of me, because I might attack him in a crowded hall. He was afraid because I was alive, and a man who is alive can talk. A man who is alive can tell the true story of what happened that night, and that story could break the fragile new peace between Earth and the Thren Collective, since the very people who covered it up were now standing inside this room, dressed as ambassadors of trust. I was not just a guard anymore. I was a loose thread, and someone had finally found the end of me. The Queen leaned toward me slightly, her voice low and amused. She asked if I knew the new arrivals, since I had gone unusually still, even for me. I told her I did not recognize anyone important. It was the first real lie I had told her since she hired me, and it sat heavy in my chest. She believed me, because why would she not? To her, I was furniture with a heartbeat, a polite decoration from a species still learning how to shake hands properly. She turned back to her court, laughing at something a noble said, completely unaware that the real danger in that hall was standing quietly behind her chair, staring at 3 men who wanted him gone before sunrise. The banquet continued for another hour, and I used every minute of it. I counted exits. I noted which servants moved with too much purpose, which guards stood a little too far from their assigned posts, which decorative jewelry on the diplomats' robes carried a faint hum I recognized as sound-dampening tech, the kind used to move without footsteps. These were not diplomats. They were the same kind of quiet operators I used to work beside, professionals, people trained to erase problems without leaving a mark on the official record. When the Queen finally rose to retire for the night, I walked half a step behind her, the way I always did, through the long stone corridor that led to her private chambers. The lights were low there, the noise of the banquet fading behind us. It was the perfect place for something quiet to happen. I felt it before I saw it. A change in the air pressure near the side passage, the kind you only notice if you have been trained to notice it. I stepped in front of the Queen without thinking, one hand raised, and told her to stop walking. She looked at me with surprise, maybe even a little insult, since no one spoke to her like that, but something in my voice made her obey. Owen stepped out of the shadow of the side passage first, no longer smiling. Behind him came the other two, their diplomat robes gone, replaced by simple dark clothing built for movement. No weapons in their hands yet. They did not need them yet. Men like that prefer to talk their way close before they act. Owen spoke my old rank first, quiet and careful, like a password. He said it was good to see me alive, though his voice did not sound like he meant it. He said this did not need to become complicated. He said if I stepped aside, this was between old comrades, and the Queen would never be touched. I understood then that he was lying, the same easy way he used to lie about weather reports and supply numbers. Men like him do not leave loose ends standing. He would deal with me first, and deal with what the Queen saw second. I asked the Queen, without turning around, to step back slowly toward the hall behind us, where her personal court guards stood only 50 steps away. She did not argue this time. Something in the air had convinced her that the furniture behind her chair had just become the only wall standing between her and something very old and very dangerous. Owen took a step forward, and I matched it, closing the distance instead of waiting. That surprised him. People like Owen expect fear to make a man freeze, but I had already lost everything I was afraid of losing, 3 years ago, in the smoke of that outpost. There was nothing left in me for him to threaten. What happened next was quiet. It always is, with people trained the way we were trained. No shouting, no dramatic clash, just quick movement, careful footing, controlled breathing, the kind of fight that looks like nothing from far away and means everything up close. I used the narrow corridor to my advantage, since 3 cannot easily surround one, in a space built for one person to pass at a time. I used my knowledge of their training, since I had once shared it, to guess their next move before they made it. It ended faster than I expected, not because I was stronger, but because they had planned for a silent guard who would freeze in shock at old ghosts, not one who would move straight into the fight the second he understood what it was. By the time the Queen's personal guards came running down the corridor, alerted by the noise, Owen and his 2 companions were on the ground, disarmed, breathing hard, but alive. I made sure of that. I did not want more deaths added to a night that already carried enough weight for one lifetime. The Queen stood at the end of the hallway, watching all of this with wide, careful eyes. For the first time since I had taken this job, she was looking directly at me, not through me. Later that night, in her private chamber, she asked me to explain everything, and for the first time, I did. I told her about the outpost, about my squad, about the mission that never officially happened, about the men who burned their own evidence, and buried the truth so deep that even my own name disappeared from the record. I told her these 3 men had not come for her. They had come for me, because a living witness is more dangerous than any weapon, and because the treaty she was so proud of had been built, in part, on a lie neither government wanted uncovered. She listened without interrupting, which surprised me, since Thren royalty rarely let a human finish a full sentence without comment. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she told me something I did not expect. She said she had hired a silent human guard because it made her look approachable to her own people, a small, harmless gesture toward a new ally. She admitted she had never once wondered what silence might be hiding. She told me that from that night forward, I would not stand behind her chair as decoration. She gave me a new title in her court, one that had never before been given to a human, a formal name that meant something between guardian and witness, a person trusted to see what others chose not to see. I did not know what to say to that, so for once, I said nothing at all, and she seemed to understand that my silence, this time, was not born from grief or hiding. It was simply mine to give, and I chose to give it to her. The three men were sent back to Earth under guard, their false diplomatic titles stripped away, their story finally forced into the light neither government wanted. It would take time to sort out the truth, time to decide who would answer for what happened at that outpost 3 years ago. But for the first time since that night, I was not the only one who remembered it, and I was no longer standing alone in the smoke. I still stand behind the Queen's chair most nights. I still say very little. But now, when I go quiet, it is because I choose to, not because there is nothing left inside me to say. And somewhere far away, men who once thought silence meant weakness are learning, slowly and carefully, that some silences are simply waiting for the right moment to speak.